G'day Battlers and welcome to the G'day Battlers podcast Road to Worlds edition. I'm PvPSteve.
And I'm debbiepebble, and in this series we'll be talking to each of the 2023 Play Pokemon World Championship contenders from the land down under as we head to Yokohama, Japan.
In this episode, we'll be talking to YACOBERVITCH and FishOnAHeater, the first ever Oceania International Champion and runner-up for Pokemon Go. YACOBERVITCH has a decorated history in the Sylph Arena tournament circuit, and with his strong performance at OCIC, to this date still holds the highest win rate of any Play Pokemon competitor in the world. And FishOnAHeater, who is a long-time content creator as a part of Pallettown PvP, and also co-hosts the GoCast PvP Corner podcast with DeFi 250. Let's get into it. G'day, Battlers! G'day, FishOnAHeater and YACOBERVITCH, number 1 and number 2. Not necessarily in that order from OCIC. Welcome to the podcast. How are you guys going? I mean, I know that there's like 2 people here, so like, whenever you ask how are you guys going, like it's a race. Who's going to answer first?
I consider it like opening the door and like letting someone go through. Like after you, sir.
I'll be the gentleman and let Fish go first.
No, please, I insist.
Oh, in that case, then I'm doing quite well, Steve.
I'm really good, thank you.
All right then.
And we're off to a bang. I mean, before we get too far into it, YACOBERVITCH, can you just sort of give us like a brief intro, like who you are, like your in-game name, where you're from, all of that, before we degenerate too far?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So my name, I'm Jacob. My in-game name is YACOBERVITCH. Don't confuse the V and the B. It's YACOBERVITCH. So just saying. So I'm from Melbourne in Australia. So basically where OCIC was held. Yeah, so basically just always been from here, just a local to this area.
While we're on that topic, can you brief us on the explanation of your in-game name?
So it's actually a bit more of a sentimental name, to be honest. It's the name that my grandfather always called me when I was a kid. So I'm like part European, so Jakob is like the European way that a lot of people say my name. And he always just extended it to YACOBERVITCH. So that was just a name that I've always like held with me. And so when I was making my in-game name for the Pokemon Go, it took a few ways to like try and actually get it, because it turns out YACOBERVITCH is quite common as a nickname in the game. Wow. So I ended up just having to go with full caps just to let everyone know who I was.
I thought we were just yelling, you know.
Well, I'm also half deaf, so it kind of also makes sense. I need to yell out my name so I can hear myself properly.
It matches your natural volume.
Oh, yes.
But Fish, I mean, same question, like, you know, who are you, where are you from, and where does the name FishOnAHeater come from, which I'm sure has not been asked before at all.
No, never. Everyone's like, yeah, it sounds natural. So I'm FishOnAHeater from Adelaide, and the name FishOnAHeater comes from the poker scene, because just as Pokemon Go PvP was becoming a thing, that was at a time for me where I was just starting to study the game of poker. In poker, a fish is a bad player, and a heater is like a winning streak or a hot streak. So like a bad player that's happening to win, that's doing well. Although sometimes when I'm talking to Americans, I like to tell them that it's because shrimp on the Barbie was trademarked.
That's good. That's good. Oh, okay. I mean, I guess the next part of it all is like, what sort of brought you into Pokemon Go in general? So obviously, you know, Fish, I mean, you've already mentioned that it was sort of around the same time for you, but what's how is the bridge into Pogo?
So I was actually a day one player myself. I call myself a day one returner. So I was there like right on day one. In fact, I downloaded the game so early that I had to like scroll down through the Google Play search listing to find it, because it was like so fresh in the App Store. I played for, I don't know, like a year and a half. Then I was out for about a year and a half. And then a friend of mine who had been playing the whole time told me, "Oh, you should download the game again. It's got so much more stuff than what it used to." And I did, and I enjoyed it for a bit more, for a bit longer. But again, I guarantee I would have lost interest after a few months if PvP hadn't become a thing, and not specifically just PvP, but the Silph Arena in general. So like, I was enjoying just the in-game PvP a lot more than everyone else that I knew. I was at a poker game, and a friend of mine, it was actually directing the game, he was a Pokemon Go player. He goes, "Oh, you're going to this Pokemon Go tournament that's happening up at Mawson Lakes?" And I'm like, "Pokemon Go tournament?" And then he shows me this poster that was like knocked up. It looked really cool, like explaining all the rules of Boulder Cup, you know, ground, rock, fighting steel, 1500 CP, and I'm like, I'm intrigued. And so I went to this tournament. There was exactly 8 players. I went 2-1, and that ruined my life. Because it's I was only interested in that from then on.
The amount of time that was sunk because of that 2-1 performance.
Exactly. Like I, before PvPoke was a thing, I spent so long trying to perfect my own spreadsheets of like what beats what in what situations, and like get them like to automatically color code, like, you know, turn up green if it's a win and turn up red if it's a loss, and you know, there's different shades of it depending on how heavy the win or loss is. And like I spent more time trying to perfect it each month than what value it actually gave me by several orders of magnitude.
I love how like we've come from that to where we are now, to such a long way. Yako, from your end, like how did Pokemon Go ruin your life? I mean, what brought you into Pokemon Go?
So I was also a day one player, and actually, just as Fish says, I actually had to do the same thing of scrolling down the Play Store because I remember thinking like, "Oh, Pokemon Go comes out today. Where is it?
Where is it?
I know it's on the game." Scrolling down, eventually saw it. I'm like, "Oh, sweet, there it is." Installing it, playing it. I think honestly, I'm pretty much the same. I played for like a while. I think like a year and a bit when it first came out. I played like some of the earlier main series games. I watched the TV shows. I've always been a fan of Pokemon. So of course, when I heard this game was coming out, I was so hyped for it. Played it for a while. I stopped playing after there was a glitch the game had where it corrupted certain game files. I unfortunately had one of the files that got corrupted. So all my data or everything on it was lost.
Oh.
So that was unrecoverable. So like all the 2016, 2017 mods I caught, all gone. There was no way to recover that. Put the game down for a while. I think I picked it up again a year or two later, maybe like 2018, like around 2018, I think. I picked it up again. I think played it for about 6 to 9 months or something like that. And then I think I just put it down. I stopped playing it again. And then during COVID time, the friend of mine was playing Pokemon Go to alleviate her boredom, and she suggested for me to get it again. I was like, oh, that's actually not a bad idea. Good way to go exercise and all that. So as well, so I installed the game, started playing. I had no idea what community days were. I had no idea what rocket stops were. Like, I didn't know anything about this. So it took a while of like figuring everything else out. I didn't get in touch with the community. Like, I didn't even know there was a Pokemon Go community until like 6 months after I started playing it again. Started joining some group chats and all that, like on Facebook or Discord. And then I think I selected the battle tab in the menu at one point by accident. I'm like, oh, what's this? Started playing GBL. I was like, I think the Ultra League rotation at that point. And I remembered I ran a Alolan Golem, Arcanine, and a Stoutland. I think it was like my first team I ran. I walled every Giratina with the Stoutland. I was also outraged when I thought someone was cheating because they had 2 charge moves on their Pokemon, and I didn't realize that was a thing. So I actually remembered like typing an in-game like complaint like on the thing saying like you need to nerf Giratina, blah blah blah, which I'm sure every other player has thought of. So yeah, that just shows how little knowledge I had back then. And then I started getting a little bit better with it, and then I was talking to some friends in a group chat one day, and we're talking. I was like trying to get some of them to talk about PvP and all that. Lo and behold, I did not realize that there was one person in that group who also PvP, and that was InnerBloom94.
Oh dear. I mean, yes.
He was part of a small local raid chat that was mostly just bantering and a few raids here and there that InnerBloom happened to also be in. So he knew, he saw that I had interest in PvP, added me to his local PvP chat, and from there, that's when I started like learning about PvP, getting involved with the communities and all that. I think my first Sylph tournament was during, I think it was Labyrinth or Vortex, one of those two. This is like season 2, I think, of season 2 or season 3. I can't remember. It was like definitely well after Sylph had started. Like I was nowhere near an early player at all. Like I think my first GBL season was season 6. So I was definitely quite late to the scene compared to a lot of other people. First 2 Sylph tournaments, InnerBloom swept me both times. And from then on, I don't like losing, as some people might know. So I decided to like, you know what, I'm gonna get good enough one day to beat InnerBloom94. Little did I know that I literally set my sights on what probably became one of the best players in the world. As the person I wanted to beat. I set the bar high without realizing, and my stubbornness actually got me to the point where I could finally beat him.
And we're here now.
Yeah, and that's how my life ended.
The bar was set so high, and it was all just a life of trying to reach to those heights. And obviously, I mean, I guess that brings us on to what we're actually here to talk about, and that being OCIC, the first ever OCIC that included Pokemon Go. Obviously, we had one season where they had already had their OCIC pre-COVID, so we didn't get another one in the 2022 season, but in the 2023, I guess it's 2022 to 2023 season, we did actually get one for the first time. And I mean, it was a huge event, but I wanted to sort of touch on like, Yako, going to this tournament being this was your second Play Pokemon tournament. What were you sort of thinking going into it? How were you preparing? What were you expecting? Like, give us what was going through your head a little bit.
To be honest, going into it, I didn't envision winning it at all, to be honest. Like, winning would have been nice. Is what I was thinking at the time. I honestly didn't really have any time to prep because the only way I could get the weekend off to go to OCIC was to work like the 2 weeks straight beforehand was the only way I was going to be able to. So like a lot of my time was spent working, which meant that I honestly did not prep for the tournament at all. I threw a team together about 5 hours before the deadline, because I think the deadline was like 6 a.m. The morning of the tournament. I threw my team in at like 1 a.m. I couldn't decide on one. I kept swapping and changing, ended up just throwing a hard meta team together. Went into the tournament, basically just no practice, no nothing. Just went in there, figured, you know what, I'm just going to join. I'm going to have fun, hang out with the community, get as far as I can. And that was really, really the mindset. And then in my bracket, seeing that I was up against InnerBloom94 and Ace Trainer, who are both extremely cracked players, I figured my run was going to end quite early. But yeah, little did I know that I actually would go all the way through with that.
Well, famously, the best decisions are made at 1 a.m., right? So I think that off to a good start. But Fish, I'm assuming your prep was slightly different to that.
Yeah, I'm listening to I didn't do any prep, and I'm like, I hate you so much.
It's like that guy, you know, when you used to be in school and be like, oh yeah, I didn't study for this test, I got all A's, and you just like studied so hard, still got a C.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, the eyes are red and bloodshot with all the like late nights you've done, all the stress. But yeah, no, it's I did a lot of prep by way of a lot of practice tournaments online. Yeah, I just played around with my team until something kind of clicked, and I found one that just felt really good. Having discussions with other high-level battlers that I was friends with about, pros and cons of particular mons in the team. And yeah, that was pretty much everything. I've never been a person who can rattle off different shield scenarios and stuff. My big strength has been in my energy counting. I think I can keep track of energy pretty well, but I've talked to trainers who've been like, oh yeah, this Pokemon will beat X Pokemon with a 3 Shadow Claw energy lead. I'm like, that is beyond me. So I do feel like I succeed off of instinct to some level. Definitely not as much as Yako seems to, who just 1 a.m. put a team together, no prep, bam, wins Oceania. But I do think that there is just some level of things that have been embedded in my subconscious over the years of playing, and just the hundreds and hundreds of tournaments that I've done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely players that it comes to very naturally, and there's players that just need to really just study and practice and repetition, and once they get to that point, then it becomes natural for them as well. Now, talking about your team, Fish, it was the first time I think has been brought into not to the public, but especially on stream, something that was a little bit off meta. Can you dive in a little bit into that?
So there has been a lot of commentary this season about the Great League meta, and in particular the whole triangle of Lantern, Noctowl, and Trevenant. And the problem with that particular meta is that it removes a lot of the ability to utilize energy, shields, HP management, all those tools in winning your matchup. It's very reliant on alignment. So if you get your Noctowl against the Trevenant, you'll win. If you get the Lantern against the Noctowl, generally you'll win. And if you get the Trevenant against the Lantern, even if you're 2 shields up, you're probably 2 shields down. Sorry, you're probably still going to win. So my main focus when building my team was to just not do that. I just wanted to try and avoid alignment-based matchups as much as possible. I did not want any battle to come down to just, whoops, Trevenant against Noctowl, unlucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think definitely within this current meta, it can be RPS, rock, paper, scissors, and it sometimes just comes down to luck. So I think it was interesting to see your team come across, and a lot of people were surprised, and also I think it was people didn't know what to expect from it as well. So with Yako, your team, however, was, I suppose, meta of the meta. Could you debrief on that, on why I suppose you were very comfortable with it for something that's already been shown multiple times prior to OCIC?
So, like I said, even though I didn't have the chance for practices, tournaments and stuff, I constantly went through different teams in my mind, trying to figure out what combination is the best combination. One thing that I really settled on in my head was Trevenant it was too strong. Aside from Noctowl, the fact that it can, with shields or energy up, it can punish just about every other mon in the meta. I knew in my mind that was going to be the one mon to kind of try and counteract. So the one conscious decision I made on the team was to have 2 very hard checks to Trevenant, being Noctowl and Umbreon. So, and it actually succeeded. To be honest, I can't recall anyone bringing a Trevenant against me, because I had that threat of Noctowl and Umbreon, who, honestly, aside from aside from Registeel, nothing actually punishes the two of them. Like, even, like, Charm A9, Noctowl still handles fine. Powder Snow A9, along with Ninetales. Umbreon actually doesn't do that bad against. Two Last Resorts puts it down into the red. Umbreon can even flip the matchup if you get your shields right. Like, if you shield the Dazzling Gleam or call a Weather Ball bait, Umbreon can pretty much flip that matchup.
I'm writing this down, by the way.
So it was, for me, like, as long as I had just 2 hard checks for Trevenant, then I was pretty much happy with that. I could basically just run my own Trevenant for the most part as well, because I think having having G-Fisk and Lantern made Noctowl kind of iffy as well. So, like, against me. So, and I think a lot of people, I don't know why, I think from what the mindset I got there was no one wanted to leave Trev in case of a Noctowl lead, because then it was reliant on you have to win Switch. So I just led Trevenant majority of my games, because I honestly just felt like it was good. Like, almost every matchup I could safely safe swap Umbreon and get a shield advantage or switch. And then, honestly, it almost always brought out the Medicham, which meant that the Stunfisk with a shield up at the end could basically sweep through entire teams. So I think I ran that trio of Trev, Umbreon, Stunfisk in a lot of my games, because those 3 worked really well together. I think that's honestly about it. Like, Umbreon was the only Mon I consciously picked for the team. Everyone else is just basically, it's meta, it's strong, I'll throw it in.
Okay, but that didn't always work out, because if we start going through the brackets, right, in the very first round, famously, for those who watched the interviews at the very end, there was a battle that you lost very early on in the tournament. Do you want to give us a little bit of insight into that major loss of yours?
To be honest, if certain events didn't occur, I may have actually lost that first round. Very famously at the St. Kilda Regionals during the last one, my first round loss was against a Shadow Sharpedo team. And then, yeah, I lost against the Shadow Sharpedo team. And then I was 1 win off day 2. I think I lost the first round and then won like my next 5 or 6 rounds going towards day 2. Fell just short of that. And when I saw the team that Jay Slice was up ran, I saw Pidgeot, I saw a level 51 Aron. I thought to myself, I'm going to lose round 1 again. I saw this and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I'm already not enjoying what's going on here. So, first game, this is like the first round of the tournament and all that. We jump into a game. I had Medicham against the Pidgeot. It was already a lead loss. I think I safe swapped. I think I had like Medi, G-Fisk, Lantern or something like that. And I think I safe swapped the Lantern, which got punished, or I safe swapped G-Fisk. I can't remember. One of them got punished. And then they started announcing that everyone needs to get in their seats and prepare for the battles. And me and Jay Slice looked at each other like, oh, we shouldn't have started this. So we quit out of the match. And we're basically like, all right, how are we going to do this? And Jay Slice is like, I think same leads, different backlines. I'm not sure if he suggested I suggested, but we basically agreed, same lead, different backlines. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is going to be an early round 1 loss. So I had the Medicham onto the Pidgeot, like, for the lead. I thought to myself, you know what, if we're changing backlines, I'm going to leave Medicham and have Trevenant in the back. I'll soft lose to the Pidgeot, Trevenant sweeps the back. So that's how I won game 1. Game 2 was the unfortunate Pidgeot farming down to Trevenant and feather dancing my Stunfisk to oblivion to the point where a Rock Slide basically did about as much as an Earthquake to it.
Pidgeot is a G-Fisk counter?
They put up the Rock Slide and Pidgeot just stared at it just like, is that it? Is that all you got? And I'm just like, you know what, that was a punishing defeat. Like, I think I didn't even see Jay Slice's 3rd Pokemon. I was just that overwhelming of a defeat. And then managed to bring it back to game 3. Luckily, I somehow survived the Uberlord spice of round 1 this time. So that was how that loss came around. Oh, the Aron never came. I was fully expecting the Aron to come at some point in time.
What moves does that even have?
Okay, I actually know this one. I know it learns Tackle and Metal Claw for its fast moves, and it also has Body Slam, Rock Tomb. It was Purified, I'm pretty sure. So I knew it probably had Return, and I'm pretty sure it has like Heavy Slam or Iron Head.
So I mean, if you're running Body Slam, you probably wouldn't want to run Return as well. So I'm guessing, yeah, double normal. That classic line. The double normal moveset.
In a meta with Trevenants.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit scary.
Rock Tomb, I guess, would be the other one. I'd guess.
Yeah, yeah, it would have been like you have to run Rock Tomb just as the if you're trying to use it as the. I think I remember J Slice's team being like the embodiment of RPS. I think it was like double flyer, double steel, and then like 2 other mons. But it was like you could basically either run double steel or double flyer every game, and it's just like which way is you gonna go?
Look at it this way, right? That's again Spice Lord, J Slice coming in, and in his defense, he is very much an Agron family fan. So I think he sort of brought that Aron in as a bit more of a mascot than an attempt of really cracking open the meta, even though he got that Pidgeot in. But again, sort of coming back to Fish, obviously running that very very spicy team, and I think Fish, you've certainly gotten a lot of attention post OCIC for essentially showing that you could perform really well in the current Open Great League meta with a team that does have some slightly spicier picks, so like bringing in the Abomasnow, bringing in the Gliscor. So can you sort of take us through sort of your early run through the tournament? Maybe a skip out on round 4 against some other guy who maybe have been made very sad for that battle. But give us a little bit of a rundown.
And that's funny because like that. So for those who don't know, Steve and I faced off in round 4, and it was on stream as well. And that was funny because it was like coming up to lunchtime, and like a few of us were hovering around like the judges area, trying to work out like, are we going to be able to go to lunch, and like when's that going to happen versus like who's going to go on stream, etc. Just trying to coordinate all of that together. And there gets to a point where the judges just look out at the group of us assembled, and it's like, so one pairing is going to have to battle over the lunch break. Does anyone want to volunteer? And nobody put their hand up, and then Steve and I just looked at each other and we're like, all right. So we put our hands up. And so that's how that ended up getting up on stream. Otherwise, we would have been in obscurity. Like the rest of the
I think
pairing.
it may have been the case that we would have been on anyway. It just would have been after lunch. So potentially, I'm gonna blame my loss on the fact that I wasn't fed yet. That was the deciding factor for sure. But things like when we came back after you absolutely demolished me, and I've been thinking about this. This game is stuck in my head. A game where I had Shadow A9 with Charm in the lead. I used both of my shields and then swapped out to throw away both shield advantage and switch advantage, which Fish then very tidily swept me up. But after that, we sort of went off, had lunch, and I was sort of eating my lunch, and I got all of these pings in Discord and Twitter being like, Steve, where are you? You're on now. And I was like, wait, but we got our lunch break after, right? So then I ran back, got to the table barely in time. CCO said, oh, Steve, you're lucky I like you. But barely back in time. But
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
how
So did you not get a lunch break?
So it was a lunch break. I don't think it was the full lunch break we were promised. But obviously, you staying in the winners bracket, you get to do sort of fewer battles. But obviously, that sort of it's getting towards the end of day 1. What was it like battling with that slightly different team? Like, I think that people who, unlike Yako, did a lot of physical practice, would be practicing against a lot of sort of more meta teams. Teams with fewer Abomasnows and Gliscors, potentially. Did you feel like you were catching people off guard, or do you feel like was it just sort of as you expected? I guess is my sort of wondering.
I'm not entirely sure of the answer to that. I have heard it said and I think it's a pretty valid point that like it can take people some time to adjust to something unexpected. But that the good battlers can adjust automatically after a certain amount of time. Yako would be the first to tell you, like, he probably wouldn't have actually done any specific study or preparation against my team, but he's a good enough battler that once he's had time to just mentally process, oh, this is a team that I'm going to come up against, then, like, the instincts would kick in and he'd know what to do to take it on. Was that the question? Did I answer the question?
I mean, look, I mean, really, shouldn't I be answering the question, seeing as I was your opponent? I was scared.
I remember Yako before day 2 started telling me that my team was obnoxious.
It was like you. Okay, so I said like because there was a lot of mixed opinions about your team. Some people were like it's too spicy. People saying, oh, it's actually quite creative. I was I was under the impression that your team, although like very unorthodox, was really well built because aside from my own Umbreon, there was really nothing on my team that was safe. So like I felt that like your team was obnoxious, not in the sense of like, oh, your team is bad, but it's actually quite difficult to go up against because I don't know what you're going to do. Like, you could go with a double fly strat, but you can go ABA with it, because you have a Zard and a Gliscor. Zard loses a Lantern, Gliscor doesn't lose a Lantern. So does that mean, like, if I run Metacham, is my Metacham, like, gonna be just, like, you know, stopped by double flyer? Or if I run Stunfisk, there's, you know, it cool, it beats Charizard, but then he can have the Lantern and the Gliscor, and it's like, it was really tricky trying to figure out what to run against your team, and that was why I said it was obnoxious.
Yeah, don't worry, I didn't take it in a bad way. Yeah. So I understood.
Also, I will say, like, even though I appreciate you and Steve sacrificing your lunch break, because I'm pretty sure we got the most entertaining match of the entire OCIC.
I mean, it could have been more entertaining if you'd brought that Ampharos in.
Look, I was happy enough getting Shadow Ampharos on stream the first time round. In my first time on stream round 2, I was like, okay, I've done my piece. I won with the Shadow Ampharos, and I was so scared of that Gliscor, man.
Yeah. I think did I have a couple of like the Abomasnow does pretty well against the Ampharos too.
Ampharos needs energy to be able to get the Focus Blast off to try and land that through. It was.
You didn't even you didn't run the Brutal Swing. You ran you ran Focus Blast.
I ran Brutal Swing Focus Blast. No electric move.
Wow.
No, okay, so no Thunder Punch. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, how many people would have been bringing? How many people would have brought Pokemon that you need Thunder Punch for? Like, I imagine you'd still be able to beat Noctowl with Volt Switch, Brutal Swing, and then like how many other Pokemon would be weak to Electric? Charizard, I guess.
Yeah, but look, Charizard's sort of doing very well outpacing as well. It really did work out for me later on in the tournament. You know, Brutal Swing came in heat. Focus Blast, to be honest, I probably could have run Electric instead. But the thought was there. I was following Butter's advice, right? But I mean, coming back to your team, Fish, a friend of mine described it. They were like, they were looking at your team and like, I don't know if he's a genius or an idiot. It's that. What is he cooking? What's happened here?
It's funny because there's a lot of what's the word for it? There's a lot of obvious in hindsight, I guess, kind of. So, like, Yako, you mentioned that some people were saying that it's a great team and some people were saying it's a stupid team. I imagine that a lot of the people saying it's a great team would have looked at me getting second and been like, see, it's a great team. And then a lot of people who thought it was stupid would have seen how poorly I did against you and saying, see, you can't beat meta. Meta's meta for a reason. And I feel like both sides are wrong because there's so many more factors that come into it other than just the team. I think the team was good enough to win that tournament. But a lot of other factors.
I agree there.
Yeah.
No, that team definitely was able to take me down. I think I said it in like the just before the grand finals interview. It kind of came down to alignment. In terms of like the Abomasnow, the meta gem onto the Abomasnow, or if the Lantern gets matched up against it. I think another thing as well is I could be wrong in saying this, but I believe that you're like one of the first people to get Water Gun Lantern quite far in a tournament. And I actually recall a lot of people saying that Water Gun Lantern was bad, like the worst choice. I think you may have been one of the bigger factors in popularizing Water Gun Lantern. I could be wrong, and maybe someone else actually got further with it before, like got far with it earlier than you did. But I think like OCIC, seeing a Water Gun Lantern make second, I think may have kickstarted more people using it.
And I've got to give credit to Yusei Furu for that. Him and I were chatting a couple of days before I left, and he made the suggestion. And I've brought this up on my own podcast before, how you get a lot of people who are very talented battlers, very accomplished, and also very well-meaning, who are used to things working a certain way, and so I was being told by many people, don't do this because it's, you know, out of the norm, and do this because this is what succeeded for everyone in the past. And I really appreciated the suggestion of Water Gun Lantern from Yusei, because I felt like it gave me permission to step outside the norm. I as soon as he said it, I was like, yes, that makes complete sense. Because I was already thinking about, well, I'm struggling a little with G-Fisk and Swampert. So yeah, I took to that idea immediately, and I do think that people started to take a bit more notice of Water Gun Lantern after that.
I love it. The stars aligned and everything happened and everything worked. By just those small tweaks. And I love that TJ managed to just like help you with that and being like, oh, okay, it finally clicked. All right, I can definitely, let's roll with this. Now both of you obviously did so well, made it to day 2 now, which is really unheard of in the Australian scene. Obviously we haven't had like a 2-day tournament. So tell me what went through your minds after day 1 and actually having to be like, I've got to rest, I've got to sort stuff out, and I've got to come back and play tomorrow. We'll start with you, Yako.
So as I said before, I actually didn't do any prep, and there is a reasoning for this, because St. Kilda the year before, I have a bad habit of overthinking, and I doubt myself. This is like something I actually do quite often.
Preach. Yes, keep going.
Yes, so OCIC, I wanted to come in with the mindset of, I'm not going to bring a notebook. I'm not going to bring anything. I'm going to look at that team of 6, look at my team of 6, and think, like, off the top of my head, go with my gut, hey, this team looks good, sort of thing. So going into day 2, I wanted to basically replicate the same thing. I actually didn't want to scrim, despite what my factions teammates kept telling me. They all kept offering, we can do scrims, we can do this, we can do that, and I'm like, no, I'm actually not going to do any of that. I am quite literally just going to, we all went out for dinner that night. I turned in earlier than most, and I actually didn't do any practice, didn't even look at the teams, because I didn't want to like go to bed knowing the teams and trying to like think of a strategy and stay up all until the late hours in the morning overthinking everything. And that was honestly that was how I did it. I just went in on pure instinct.
No, that's fantastic.
Represent.
Yes, Team Unity represent. But it's totally. I get that as an overthinker myself. I totally understand that aspect of, you're still thinking or like simming in your head into like the wee hours of the morning, and it should be just rest time. It should be like time to recollect and just rest, so you have that energy and just freshness to go in the morning. Fish, how about yourself? How was after day 1 leading into day 2 for you?
I don't think I took to it very well at all. I remember the night before the first day, I had been lying awake in bed. Like, I don't even think I was overly stressed, but I just could, for whatever reason, could not get to sleep. So I was just staring at the ceiling in the pitch black, just waiting for sleep to come. And I guess when you are trying to tell yourself, get to sleep, you're not going to get to sleep. So I think I ended up getting like 3 hours that night. Thankfully, it didn't seem to affect my performance on day 1 that much, but then I think coming back on day 2, my body was like, "Can we stop now?" And I never felt as in the zone on that second day as what I did in the first. I think in the first day, like, I could see the whole battle unfolding with most of the battle, or I think all of the battles. Day 2, you could probably watch back my battles there, and you could see, like, I don't really have a plan. I seem to be just trying to make things up on the spot. And I think, yeah, a big part of that is that I just wasn't good at adjusting to that second day.
I'm actually in the same boat as you, Fish. I definitely did not play anywhere near. Even I did win, yes, but I did not play as well as I did on day 1 playing day 2. Like,
Right.
I don't know about you, but like I looked back on the actual video, watching my own battles, and I can see so many little mistakes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why did I do those mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I honestly most likely would never have done on a normal day. So I understand completely where you are there about not playing as well as day 1.
Yep. I actually compare it to a marathon versus a sprint, where like a marathon runner like won't be able to, like an expert marathon runner won't be able to automatically do well in a sprint, and vice versa. The sprinter can't suddenly turn their attention to marathons, because you use your muscles differently. Your body works a different way with both formats. And I kind of liken it to this, where day 1 was like, you know, however long it was, like 12 hours or whatever of focus and attention, and, you know, yeah, keeping up that performance. And then day 2 is just 2 or 3 sets, basically. It was three for me. It would have been it would have been 3 for that Vish as well if he'd gotten there. Oh, did you have 3? I thought you had 2.
I had 2. Yeah, so I had 2.
Yeah.
You had 3. Vish only had the 1. He only had the 1 against you.
Yeah. If he were to go on to win, it would have been 3 for him.
Yes.
Yeah. Either way, it's more of a sprint, and so I think just having to adjust to that is probably a skill in itself. Like, it's probably if you can get used to that as a battler, then you're probably putting yourself at an advantage, giving yourself an advantage over the rest of the competition.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way, right? The sort of people in North America that perform at these very high levels, they sort of consistently get that experience where they do get to day 2. They do have some experience under their wing about getting to that second day and preparing and being in that headspace. And I suppose that's something that Australians just haven't been given the opportunity to get. And even here in OCIC, like, you know, there's the 2 of you, there's Vish, but because it was only a top 3 going to that day 2 in our case, it still means that there are not very many people who have that experience of going into day 2. And not only the day 2 vibes, but the battling on stream as well, because that's something that Australians haven't had either. It's a lot of new pieces that I think is a lot of stuff to get used to, I think. And it's certainly something that I'm personally glad that you guys have had a little bit of exposure to heading into the World Championships. But I guess before we sort of like tap out of the tournament itself, do you guys want to take us through the actual battles, sort of how stuff went on the ground in those sort of last couple on that day 2 championship Sunday?
Grand finals the winners finals themselves. There was one thought process I had in mind, and that was everyone kept telling me Fish loves leading Charizard.
Yeah.
Everyone kept telling me lead Lantern. He's too predictable. He's going to lead the Charizard. I immediately in my head went, I'm not leading the lantern. And I don't know why, but in my head I'm like, I'm not leading Noctowl. Sure enough, the glass door appeared. I had this, it wasn't even a thought of he's going to lead the counter. I just knew Noctowl lead, he's not leading Charizard. And I feel like, I don't know why, but I assume you were leading Gliscor maybe because you were leading Charizard so much. Maybe you thought there was going to be like a Stunfisk Lantern lead.
Is this game 1?
Yeah, for winners finals, yeah.
I actually remember
You went with the Gliscor, Umbreon, Abomasnow line.
I remember reading the night before that my Abomasnow beat 5 of your 6 in the 2 shields. So I remember leading Abomasnow and running into Metacham.
No, it was game. I actually don't know. No, game 1 was definitely Gliscor lead. I remember this because looking back afterwards, people kept asking me, "Why did you lead Noctowl?" I just said because I knew he wasn't leading Charizard. Because that was literally. I just in my head, I knew you were not leading the Charizard. So I don't know why. My next option was lead Lantern, and I caught the Gliscor.
Okay.
I think the Medi Abomasnow might have been game 2, game 3.
Maybe.
But I know game 1 was definitely Noctowl versus Gliscor.
Okay. Cool.
So, but like, I don't know.
Fish is just taking notes on the side. Yep. Cool.
My mindset was literally, like I said, I looked back at these battles a few times because I wanted to see how I could improve. Also, like looking at from my opponent's perspective is helpful to figure out like what they were trying to do, and maybe like for me, it's a way for me to study for my own battling. So like I memorized a few of the teams that we ran. But
Look, I'll say this. I've checked the tapes. We did have a Noctowl into Gliscor game 1, and the Medi Abomasnow was game 2 of that winners final.
yes.
There you go.
So yeah, in my head it was just I didn't think you were going to utilize Charizard as much because in my head it's like you've been using it all tournament, you've been relying on that strategy. Maybe for day 2, he's like, alright, he's going to expect it. I'm not going to use it. And that was my thought.
Right. Like, that's a brilliant call. That's exactly what I was thinking.
So that was basically my thought. It's just he's not going to use it. So I'm going to go with the strategy that no one else thought of, which is don't prepare as much for Charizard. I didn't bring the Lantern, did bring the Stunfisk because you bought Gliscor and Abomasnow both beat the Lantern. All 3 of your teams do fine against Stunfisk as well, which I didn't bring again. I wish I didn't bring either. So yeah, and then I think I just adapted further on as the games went. That was my thinking.
Yeah, and you and Vish both seemed very like in my head for that whole day because both of you were making just so many correct calls. Like I remember for the grand final, I'm pretty sure this was game 1 where I did decide to go back to leading Charizard, and bam, there's the Lantern.
Because I'm like, well, he didn't bring it. Actually, in my head then, it was, alright, so he didn't lead the Charizard. He's going to try his old strategy this time.
Yeah, you read that perfectly.
I don't know, like, that was just my thought process. It wasn't so much reading how you played it, it was trying to think what you were thinking, like, what were you planning to do?
Yeah, for sure.
So, I got it right, luckily.
I think we can quite confidently say that some people are just built different. And that Yako can, like, even Vish on the day, I think a lot of the commentators really commentated on just how well that they could read and shield, and it was just, I mean, like, congratulations to you both. I mean, it's no easy feat to get to top 2 of an international. And both of you are now going to Japan. I mean, like, how incredible when you think about it, from our small beginnings to where we are now, where both of you will be representing Australia over in Yokohama. So tell me, what's going through your head about Japan? Are we preparing? Are we holidaying? Yako, what are your plans?
So I'm actually going to Japan for a whole month, or just under a month. I'm actually going for a holiday with my partner because neither one of us has been to Japan, and we figured, hey, we have the opportunity. We're going to Japan anyway. Why not make a holiday out of it? And in terms of preparation, to be honest, unless until the moveset update is released, I personally don't see too much value in practicing now or even team building because like the movesets might end up changing, meta things might become not meta, spice now might become meta. So I honestly really haven't done any preparation. I've actually been taking it quite lax on PvP the last couple of weeks because I figured with Yokohama coming up in barely a couple of months, I'll be putting a lot of energy into it then. So this is kind of my downtime before I start like putting a lot into it. But yeah, so I think that's really it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from this time of recording, the move update, well, hopefully a move update should be coming out within a week. How about you, Fish? Have you sorted anything out, or are you starting to prepare for Worlds?
I thought I'd take a leaf out of the book of my favorite battler and
I hope that's me. No, I'm joking.
I was going to say, make my team at 1 a.m. and not prepare at all. But yeah, no, I was in this... What's that?
Good strategy, I like that.
Yeah, it's been working for some. But I'm in the same boat where I wanted to wait for the move update before I do any sort of prep, hoping for, you know, a Chatot buff. And,
yes, regional!
Regional! Let's go.
It's gonna be huge.
Chatter.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, guys.
Wing attack, what should it be? Like wing attack, sky attack, and shadow ball?
Oh no, Steve should know this. Chatot, what does it run?
Oh, I mean, yeah, technically, I did run this at OCIC in the pre-stream. I feel like in a battle against Speediest Chief, we did some regional battles, and so I was using some Australian regionals. He was using some regionals from Florida because they have so many. But I think Chatot actually has a fire move on its back.
Yes, it does. It is Heat Wave. I remember once I was in an auto rec tournament and I used Chatot, and I won that battle by I closed out that battle by landing a Heat Wave that KO'd, and my opponent was like, "How does Chatot know Heat Wave?" And I'm like, "Cause it's Australian.
We have Heat Waves.
Welcome to the country." Did I answer the question? Preparation for Japan. I am not going for a month, but I am going for Go Fest at the beginning of the month. So I'll be there for a couple of weeks. Really excited for that. That'll be my first in-person Go Fest, and I have already heard of like a lot of people who are also going to be there. So I think there's going to be like a lot of like interaction with other trainers there. Like get to meet a lot of the friends that I've made but never met in person.
It's really going to be a really special opportunity for that to happen because obviously us in Australia, we're so far away from everyone. It's sort of a nice, in this case, we're sort of getting people to come to us, coming to the APAC region a little bit. So it's not quite our home turf, but home turf enough. But, you know, again, huge congratulations to the both of you. But we did want to end the podcast with sort of a last little random question that is coming a little bit left field here. And so the people want to know, and this is going to be a really controversial point. So it's something that, you know, if you want to take some time to think about it, do give it a think. Yako, do you drink soup or do you eat soup?
I use a spork. That way I can do both.
Okay, I can, as a fence sitter, I see.
Yeah.
Fish on a heater. The people need to know.
I feel like if you are scooping it up with a spoon or a spork and placing it into your mouth that way, I think that is enough to say it's something that you eat. If you were to grab the bowl and tip it into your mouth, then that would be drinking.
Okay, so it's purely down to the method. Okay, I'm glad we could sort this out today.
It's all context.
On the Go Battlers podcast. It's an important thing. It's an important discussion that needed to be had, and I'm glad that we could have it here today. But with that said, again, I want to give a massive congratulations to FishOnAHeater and YACOBERVITCH for not only qualifying for the World Championships, but also dominating the first ever Pokemon Go Oceania International Championship. So really looking forward to, Debbie and I will both be there cheering on all of the Aussies. Maybe we'll have jerseys, maybe we won't, but we'll see how we go. And really looking forward to seeing how you guys do, especially once the move update comes in hopefully the next few days. But with that said, before we head off, sort of want to give an opportunity for you to sort of shout out where we can find you. Yako, I think there was a lot of attention around your Twitter in particular when you first made it. So did you want to let us know where we can keep up to date there?
You'll be able to find me Twitter at YACOBERVITCH, just my IGN. So the story with that was I didn't even have a Twitter until after OCIC when Debbie told me to make one. And then I jokingly said that I would have Hugh Jackman as the only person on my Twitter. And I ended up not following through with it, and I caught a lot of heat for that because apparently I'm not a man of my word. So I apologize to everyone who thought they would only see Hugh Jackman post on my thing, but I'm sorry, I kind of chickened out on that one.
I recall back to OCIC, and I'm just like, all right, you need a Twitter because everyone's like trying to tag you because no one's taken the username of YACOBERVITCH at this time. And I didn't want someone to snipe it, just someone being like, oh yeah, it's me. So I was like, okay. And then he was like, yep, I've made it. And I clicked on your profile because it's brand new. So I had to search it, had to look into it. And it just says following, just Hugh Jackman. I just lost it. It was the funniest thing. And I was just like, oh, I've got to send this to JR at Go Stadium now.
When I was making the Twitter, it asked me to like something. I was like, the only thing I recognized Hugh Jackman. I'm like, I don't like it.
It's a very nice
guy. He's a great actor. I don't mind him. He's Australian, and then that was literally it. And I just skipped through everything else, even though I'm pretty sure, like, as soon as after I clicked Hugh Jackman, it came up with like a few gaming options as well. I was like, no, I'm just gonna skip all that.
I think we all appreciate it, and Wolverine would probably appreciate it too. But FishOnAHeater, let us know all of the places that we can find you, because I know there's so many nowadays.
Yeah, right. So Twitter is FishOnAHeater_. Make sure to include the underscore because just FishOnAHeater without the underscore is someone in Vietnam. It's like a Vietnamese account. I'm part of a community called Pallet Town PvP, which is dedicated towards just creating great education, entertainment, and growth around PvP. So we've got a Discord server, YouTube channel, Twitch channel, and that's got its own Twitter channel as well. And so that's all Pallet Town PvP. And I am also on a podcast called, we call it PvP Corner, but it's part of another podcast called GoCast Podcast. So if you want to look for that podcast, it's GoCast Podcast, and then there is the main show with Chris and Kyle, and then myself and DeFi250, who is one of the shoutcasters for Play Pokemon Tournaments. We do that every week, and we release that in the same feed under the name PvP Corner.
So if all you care about is PvP, every second one, right? That's.
There are. It was interesting because we used to be a segment on the main show, but eventually Chris came up with the idea to split the shows because we were getting feedback of so many people who were either skipping over the PvP Corner segment or skipping over the rest of the show and just listening to PvP Corner. So it just seemed natural.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense and definitely worth checking out. And look, me and Debbie, we're both new to the podcast game, but I'm sure we'll have as many links as we can sort of fit wherever, underneath or above or to the side of wherever you happen to be listening to this. So again, thank you, massive thank you to both YACOBERVITCH and FishOnAHeater for coming on. And I guess with that, see you in Japan.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Join us next time with the Perth champion and runner-up, Avrip and Rob Drogo. Follow our socials at G'day Battlers on Twitter and YouTube. Oh, I'm gonna turn it off.
No. It's my favourite feature.